Welcome to the Resilient Recruiter podcast. This is your host, Mark Whitby, and my very special guests today are Dan Matthews, who's joining us from New York, where it's 6:30 a.m., and Justin McGuire, who's in Singapore, where it's 6:30 p.m. And Dan and Justin are owners of DMCG Global, which is a dynamic and very fast-growing recruiting business operating internationally. I'm really excited about this conversation. Dan, Matthew, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Mark. It's nice to have a chat with Justin as well. We're kind of opposite ends of the day, 12 hours apart. So we try and talk and collaborate as much as possible. So it's nice to be in dialogue as well.
All right, fantastic. So I understand that the business has come about through a merger of two separate businesses. Would you guys sort of just start at the beginning, tell us the story of how this has all come about? Maybe you can get things started, Dan.
Yeah, DMCG Global is actually a new business that's been created between the founders of Daniel Marks, MCG & Co. and 720. So that's kind of just been launching now. The website literally went live last week. But the relationship between, I suppose, me and Justin goes back probably like 20, 30 years, to be honest. We both knew each other. We grew up in Leatherhead, a small town in Surrey. Family friends. Our mums still speak to each other. I think they actually met this week for coffee to share stories. And we've always been in dialogue, actually. And I had my London office, Daniel Marks, and Justin had MCG in Dubai. And we were always in dialogue. If I was in Dubai, we'd meet up. If he was in London, we'd meet up. And I ended up going west to New York and the States, and Justin ended up going east to Asia. And the dialogue continued. And we thought, wouldn't it be good to do something together, utilizing our strengths and skills and territories? I didn't have the time or the energy really to go east as well, and likewise for Justin to go west. So sort of to collaborate and form like an alliance as a global entity seemed like a really good idea. And when we met Alan, who runs 720 in Australia, that was like the final piece, really. So we all came together to create DMCG Global, which was literally launched about a month ago, technically.
Fantastic. So wait a sec, let me get this clear. Justin, you guys were friends when you were boys.
Yeah, so Dan and I have known each other for a very long time. Firstly, our parents are friends, as Dan said. So I don't think we, when we were younger, we sort of planned this out, that we would both end up jumping into the same career. But it was quite amusing that we ended up literally doing the same thing. Dan, had set up a very similar business to what I ended up setting up in Dubai. And then, as our business grew, we sort of carried on talking. And I think we also both realized the challenges of growing a business as independent owners and not wanting to stretch your wings too far. I think that was something that Dan and I quickly realized as owners as well. So the idea of collaboration and building a global empire sort of was something that we both fancied, but realized that we were both restricted by our geographical location. And, I was very lucky that I have a business partner in Adam that I met and joined the business as a partner sort of 3 years ago. And he's been in Hong Kong. So when I was in Dubai, he was growing out the Asia business. And then we got to meet Alan, who had a pretty much identical sort of sector-wise business to Dan and myself in Australia. So it just felt like it made perfect sense for us to, once we'd all have a conversations, to align and build, something that could be a global entity.
It's interesting. We were saying just before the podcast that we both got very long days, because Justin's Dubai in the morning and then Asia right into the evening, and I've got UK very early in the morning for me, and then the West Coast is later in the day for me. So we've both got very long days already. So I don't know how someone would cover the whole globe on their own. It's nice to break it down.
Absolutely. It makes total sense. But wait, I want to really nail down this origin story, because did you guys both decide together, let's get into the recruitment industry, or was that just complete coincidence? How did that pan out, Justin?
Total coincidence, Mark. I would be lying if this was a strategic teenager decision, because it wasn't at all. It was literally the fact that both of us I ended up going into the PR and communications industry when I left school, and Dan went into recruitment, but in another completely different part of the world. Dan was in Australia, so we were doing quite separate things, and it was only from sort of beyond. And forgive me if I'm wrong, Dan, but I think it was from about sort of 2014, 2015 that we started really sort of talking about potential collaboration. And then by that time, both of our businesses had, in our respective areas, had a bit of runway between us.
Yeah, I remember getting a call from mum saying, "Oh, do you know Justin Franson? He set up a recruitment business in Dubai." I was like, "Oh, no way! That's great." I'm in Dubai. Had friends there. My wife has friends there. So next time I'm over, I'll give him a call. When I swung by her offices and said hi, went for a beer. I was like, this is a very similar setup to what I've got in London. This is great. Maybe I'll come and work here for a bit. I'll come in London. I said, we really should collaborate. But then at the time, maybe I was going to go to Dubai with an office, and London. Justin was considering maybe London for office. I thought, well, let's just see how we go. We kept the conversation going, sort of on and off, meeting up every few months for a beer when I was in Dubai or just in London for a couple of years, actually, a few years before we actually started to sort of formulate a plan based on our territories that was becoming more established where they were.
But the thing that blows my mind is that you actually are in the same sectors as well, which is advertising, marketing, communications, PR, media, that sort of thing. That just seems like a massive coincidence.
Yeah, it is a big coincidence. There's no denying that, Mark. And like I said, we didn't write the script beforehand. It just happened. And I think also what accelerated the conversations of setting up this new business and the collaboration was the fact that both Dan and I, particularly from my side, there was a bit of trial and error involved. When I was in Dubai, building the business there, we opened up Asia, but we also set up a London office, and we closed it within a year. And I very quickly realized that if you're in the emerging world or somewhere like Dubai, trying to grow a business in Asia and London at the same time, as well as continue to run your Dubai business, was a lot to do. And I think Dan was talking to me about potentially, as he said, opening up Dubai and Asia. And I think we both realized there's limitations to what one person can do given it time zones, etc., and also finding people. So it was completely coincidental, but we were really lucky. And it's as simple as that.
Your background was in marketing, wasn't it, Justin? So for you, it's a natural segue to go into the recruitment of marketing personnel, and Dubai being quite strong in the PR comms side of the business. It seemed probably for you it was a natural segue to do that in that space.
Yeah, it was. I worked in the industry for 7 years, so and I was working in digital content. I worked in broad TV, radio, then digital content, and basically no one knew what I did when I went to a recruitment consultancy. So I saw might be a gap in the market, and I then moved into recruitment and loved it, and then got the opportunity to go to Dubai.
Fantastic.
I was actually in Sydney at the time when I was doing different recruitment, finance, accountancy, and the business was looking to open up new business units. So there's a list of options like procurement, logistics, marketing and advertising. And my family's always been in advertising, marketing, PR, and it just naturally appealed to me. So I said that one would be the one for me. And I grew that sort of business unit in Sydney for a couple of years before I moved back to London to do this.
Amazing. So what's the sort of, having joined forces, and you've got Alan in Australia, you've got Adam in Amsterdam, what's the sort of size and shape of the business today?
Actually, Adam's in Hong Kong. Tasha Stark is in Amsterdam, Tash. The territory-wise, we've got 10 territories, Brisbane, Perth. We've got a JV in Sydney between all three of us, which is launching soon. Hong Kong, Singapore, and Dubai is Justin's remit. And Amsterdam, London, New York, and LA, sort of West Coast is my remit. There's 10 territories now.
Amazing. And how many people do you have in the team currently?
don't know, 40, 50.
Yeah.
We had 2 people join the London office just this week, actually. So I think we're around about 40 or 50.
The reason
it's like,
why,
we don't know how many.
no. The
It's
only
growing
reason
so
is
fast.
we put a few job offers out, and look, we've recently done the created a new business, and sort of Dan and I have both been quite aggressive on our sort of hiring. And also, I think let's not ignore the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So quite a few of the people that we've spoken to will be sort of looking to kickstart, well, from my side at least, and from the stuff that we're doing in Sydney, will be in the new year. So,
do you mean like consultants or support staff? Because they can't be confused.
Either.
We have around 20 recruiters, partners in London with 4 or 5 sort of support staff: operations, finance, marketing, another admin manager, community manager. So I mean, sort of probably 40 partners, recruiters, and an additional 10 sort of support staff.
Got it. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's fantastic. So, what for you guys? Let's address the elephant in the room. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Many recruitment businesses have been hit very hard by this. What impact has it had for you guys, and how have you responded to that? And I know it's different for both of you. So, Justin, do you want to start, and then I'll ask Matt the same question?
Look, I think it's from our side. We started the year like most people in sort of January, February, March. We were running on regular fuel. Then we were aware this thing was going on in China, and our Hong Kong business had already been impacted by the riots. So actually, the riot sort of masked the fact that this pandemic was brewing in China. And then by March, I knew it was pretty serious. And I actually got on the phone to Dan, and I remember the call very clearly, and said, "Be careful, there's a thunderstorm coming." And I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before, because about mid-March, we saw pretty much everything go on hold. But I will say for Singapore, Hong Kong and Dubai is that after that initial whack, we sort of sprang back to life quite quickly, and our advertising media and sort of anything advertising related got hit quite hard and remains to be sort of quite in a bit of a tough place, should we say. But the communications side of our business, which was, I'd say, much more, most of our clients were in the corporate and public affairs space. That's been really quite resilient. The governments typically spend very aggressively in recessions, and particularly in pandemics, as we found out, because they want to pacify their people. They want to ensure that their message that they're saying is consistent. So that part of our business has been quite resilient. Also, we have quite a few clients in the B2B and tech space, and that's actually also proved to be quite resilient as well. But I don't think that they've meant that we're having a great year, because everything is, as we stand right now, it looks like they've dug the hole out that our advertising business left. So I think we will end up the year on top, but nowhere near where we initially planned, and still with our advertising revenues doing, not as well as we expected, but ultimately, I think we're in a right place.
Thanks, Justin. Dan, how about for you? What's your perspective on it?
Justin mentions that call. I remember it well. I had a call literally just on the back of that as well, the same day with Martin, my FD. It was Monday, March the 16th. I was upstate New York, and I'd had a hell of a few weeks since January, and was trying to take some just kind of R&R really upstate, get some fresh air. And I arrived on the Friday evening and actually drove back to New York, Manhattan on that Monday morning. I just had to turn around and come straight back. I thought, this is seismic what's happening now. Stock market crashed that day. Clients were just sort of bailing on everything they were doing, really. And the first thing that happened was people on fixed term contracts were cut. We had, several people who were in employment, invoices are out, just cut left, right away. We had 3 Australians that we placed who were in their 3-month notice period, decided to go back to Australia imminently, like the next day. We actually lost a consultant ourselves, and he was based in a London office. He's from Perth. He called me on the Sunday and said, "Look, I've got to go, mate. I've got to get back." So he just flew the next day back, got the last plane back to Perth. So the effect was instant and sudden on that week, really. So that was the case of, how are we going to operate at this point? We're going to reduce working 4 days a week initially to basically keep all the team on. We're fortunate to have really not made any redundancies, for a very, very long time. I was able to sort of batten down the hatches and keep the team together, which was really important. But it was a massive effect. And, our pipeline was actually very, very good going into March. I had weekly and monthly dockings with the team leaders and the managers, past, present, future, past activity, present where we're at, and future sort of pipeline. And it was all looking really strong in all our territories. Netherlands got wiped out, London completely wiped out, and America too. It's been seismic. And it's been like that for a long time. And we're only seeing some sort of grassroots, we've seen patches of growth in different places, in different parts of territories. Having a spread helps. Having different territories, you can kind of go with the flow where the activity's at. We started to see a bit more activity coming at the back end of the summer. Obviously, here we are now, mid-October. There's a sort of another wave, which is lockdown, which is coming. But the difference is this was expected. We were expecting this to happen, so we're kind of well placed to deal with it. Whereas when it happened in March, it was completely out of the blue. So I admit it's been completely seismic. But what it has done is prompted us to look at things a bit differently and reevaluate. And those months where we weren't necessarily doing the recruitment of placing people, we were able to take stock, create a good business plan, a good model, and sort of build an infrastructure. And this is, we were going to be doing this sort of thing together anyway, me and Justin. We talked about that in January, February. So what we're doing now was something we were looking to do anyway. It's been seismic. I won't deny it, but we're here for the long run.
Awesome. Yeah. I think everyone listening will, resonate with what you just described as being seismic. So you're now almost reinventing the business and making some changes. Can you elaborate on what you've got planned?
What we're offering now is quite innovative. It's basically essentially a licensee model where we've stripped down a lot of the costs, and we've got a really core, strong support team, two in finance, operations, marketing, team administrator, community manager, which is like the core sort of employee to the business, and everyone else is offered opportunities as partners. So they're basically working as their own business, but taking home 60, 70, 80% of their revenue. So it's much higher commission. So we've always run a business at Daniel Marks anyway, which was Justin too, of having quite experienced consultants. Most people had 7-8 years recruitment experience, and they didn't necessarily need to be told on a weekly basis what KPIs to hit. We wanted people to have autonomy, responsibility, and to treat their own desk like a business. And this is kind of an extension of that now. So people literally are running their own business, and they've got everything to do just to plug and play, from a database, website, LinkedIn, job posting, support, finance. So they can really focus on the recruitment, and we can take care of everything else for them. So it's an interesting model. It puts the onus on the individual to perform. But if they do at the lower end, at that rate, if someone isn't billing that much, they still take home, enough to get by. But at the top end, the 80% margin, that's a lot of money. And we worked it out. All of our team in London and New York were making at least double, sometimes 3 times as much they would have made on the original model, which was a lower commission. So the more I talk to people about it, it's almost like an earworm. It gets in their mind. They think about it and go, actually, this is interesting. And the more they think about it, the more I speak to friends and family and go, do you believe I can do this, and support structures there. People actually get quite excited about it. And the longer they think, the more they kind of come back to me and say, look, I really want to pursue this. So, it's a new model. And it's been very successful so far. And people are really enjoying having the responsibility, autonomy, and actually reaping the benefits of their good work.
Fantastic. It's quite a radical departure from the way you were structured before. Justin, what sort of inspired you to reorganize the business that way?
Yeah, I think the goal really was to look at, I think Dan and I had grown our own businesses beforehand, and we saw that the model beforehand was, needed some shaking up. It needed a fresh approach and a fresh touch. And also, we were building budding entrepreneurs, and this is a great way of them still feeling part of a family, but also being able to take away the maximum amount of their earnings as well. So it just seemed to tick all the boxes. And also, we wanted to create something that was a point of difference for our consultants and for our partners, what they are now, which was that they could really feel like they were owning the business that they were running, and also they could share in the joys and also share in the, in the frustrations that happened. And I think Dan and I also shared some frustrations about manager. You hear it on multiple podcasts and even on your own. A lot of businesses have really struggled with hiring talent. It's the biggest irony, isn't it, that recruitment businesses tend to struggle with hiring recruiters in their business. So we felt this was a great way of getting experienced individuals who really wanted to take on their own business entity and felt they were up for the challenge and could plug into understand our sectors, plug into an established brand and a client base and do really well. Now, there is obviously being the geographical element of our business. That doesn't mean that what we've learned is that not everyone can flow in the same fashion. So Dan has managed to sort of plug in and play pretty well in Europe, UK, and US. I think for us in the more emerging market, and I take that as my territory in Middle East and Asia, we're running more of a hybrid model, because for expats, there is this element that to get in the country, you need to have a salary. So we're working out a bit of a hybrid model that can work for them. And in Australia, elements of it work quite well, but other sort of rules and regulations that Alan's having to sort of navigate as to how we can get it to work. But the reality is that we can build it out globally. We just have to play to some nuances in each individual region.
Fantastic.
Everyone who we had, there's an entrepreneurial spirit here. There's a case of, waking up on Monday morning and think, this is something I'm building. All these licenses we have, they're actually sellable. So if people build a business, they're making 100, 200, 300, 400K, and they're billing 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, they might want to do something else, and they can sell this license. It's much easier to sell a license than it is to sell a small recruitment business, because you are the person. Because it is plug and play, this is actually a sellable thing. So, rather than making money for someone else and then leave and it's all sort of left behind you, you can sell it and actually take away the hard graft you've put in. So it's very motivating for people. It's kind of liberating, motivating, and it's like, it's a different way of doing it, but I think it's a modern way, and it actually fits in this new situation with COVID quite well.
It's brilliant. I think it's a genius idea, and it really addresses some of the frustrations on both sides, both from the employed recruitment consultant's point of view, but also from the owner manager's point of view. I know you've both built big teams before, and you've already highlighted a couple of the frustrations. One is finding good people, and because recruiting can be a bit of a merry-go-round where people, go from firm to firm, and so finding and retaining good people is difficult. Number two is managing people and the everything that goes with that. What are you willing to share some of the frustrations that you guys had, which have kind of led you in this direction?
I would say that, for me personally, like obviously there are some very specific frustrations that you can have with building a business in the emerging world, particularly somewhere like Dubai, where there's 11 expats to one local. So naturally you're building an expat business in a foreign land. So Dubai is a very transient country. People come and go. So we had people coming there because they wanted to live in the sunshine. They thought it was a great place to. A lot of people go there on holiday, think it's great, and they want to live and work there. And sometimes I employed people who came in with great work ethics, and then all of a sudden they thought that they were still on holiday 24/7. Other people whose partners perhaps had lost jobs there, which by no fault of their own, they had to leave, or they had a family illness or sickness, then they had to leave. So building that continuous flow and having, with the employee laws, which are quite strict there, that was tough. And also, when you live in somewhere like Dubai was great in the sense that when it was boomtown, it was on fire, you were hiring, people were in hiring mode. But I then saw the vulnerability of the market as well, because when the oil price changed in, say, 2016 from like $120 to like $20 overnight, the economy rapidly tanked, and the employee laws there were very hard on me when I had a lot of people and not a lot of business anymore. So there was a lot of things that made me think about how the type of business I wanted to structure then. And Singapore and Hong Kong, of course, have their own nuances as well. In Singapore, it's very much and rightly so, a locals first policy. So, we had to change our stance from, say, in Dubai, when we were quite an expat business, into we have to be more of a local orientated business. And if we're going to hire expats, we need to make sure that we have a certain amount of locals in order to sustain that. And in Hong Kong, where things were going great, then last year, without anyone's warning, we had riots to contest with, which were, they weren't in the script. So, one thing again, so that's the three territories, say, that I look after. They each have their own nuances and differences and challenges that you have to face.
Mm.
So yeah, that's been my experience.
Interesting. Dan, what were you going to say?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been a journey. I set the business Daniel Marks in 2006, and 2008 was when the crash happened back then. So when we looked to start growing the business in 2010, there wasn't really any recruiters that had a year or two or even 3 years experience, because no one was hiring in 2008, 2009, 2010. So you either had to sort of grow your own talent, or you had to spend a lot of money for people who had 3 to 5 years experience plus, had weathered the storm and knew what they were worth. So being a small business and looking to grow, we ended up running grad schemes for young recruiters to train. We ran, we had like 150 applicants and picked basically the best 2. And we did that for 3 years in a row. And one of them, actually, Nirmal Modi, he joined in the first wave. He's still was with the business for 9 years, progressed to director last year. So that really helped from growing our own sort of, strong people and strong culture. The problem really comes when you get a bit further down the line, when you're looking to take that next step and looking to appoint senior consultants who have got experience. A lot of these teams of these people have done the round robin. They interview very well. You bring them on board. They look like they're going to, like Justin said, the resume is great. They interview brilliantly, but some of them just don't work out. And that's quite a big cost to the business. This new model, actually, if any company owner running a business will lose revenue or lose income on having people that don't work out. And that naturally affects the commission that the successful people are getting, because there's less to give to the successful people, because some people haven't worked out and it costs the business quite a lot of money. In this model, there's no loss to the business if people can't do it or it doesn't work out necessarily. So that means that the money is re-injected into the successful people, hence why the commission is so high. But we had quite a legacy of long, quite good retention rates, I'd say. We had a lot of people with us for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And when we're looking to hire people now, we do want longevity. I do want longevity. I want people who haven't job topped. It's very easy to go from one job to another. We want people who have really sort of built a desk, know their market, aren't job hoppers, and really have a craft and a specialism. That for me is one of the biggest indicators. Someone that's been in 5 jobs in 5 years, and I know the reasons why, and people have hiccups, and we're very wary of that and accommodating to that. But if there's a general theme of trying this, trying that, that's not going to be right for us, because this is like a business that's a long-term thing. It's not like a job for a year. This is something where they join and they build something. They've got all of our support. They're bought into the business. They give them like personal branding and everything you need to develop themselves. So there's a big commitment on our part too. So we do want the right people. So yeah, there's certain indicators that we've learned. I know Justin has too. I've had at any one point, sort of 30 consultants just in London alone. So you have a certain amount of hiring going on all the time, and you do pick up just over time a nous, I suppose. I'm sure you have, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's I think what I love running a business, and there are certain parts of it that I've always enjoyed. I love the feel of a business, the machinery of it, the picking up clients, watching people be successful in the firm. I love that. I think what I've learned though, as I've got a bit older, is I've got a bit of a no arsehole policy. If I'm honest with you, is that I want to hire, like-minded, good individuals. And I think as I've got older, my, particularly with this system that we've got, even though we've changed it, is that we want people that can become part of our culture as well. That we keep the culture together. That I look back on the 10 years we recently had the business in Dubai, and I look back at those sort of harmonious time, and it was great. The lovely times when we had sort of that brilliant culture of 10 people together, and it felt like a family. And I want to try and recreate that, and in each of the different hubs that we are, and that is my goal. And so, I think, I don't think breeding recruiters is always is as long as you've got good clients, you've got a good business revenue stream, and the markets that you work in are producing that can be quite easy. But what I learned, I've had, since setting up the business, I've had to compete with a pandemic. I set up in a global financial crisis. I've had a pandemic to compete with, an oil price crash. So I've learned that, and apt that it's the name of your podcast, Mark, but I've learned that resilience is the greatest virtue that I need in people as well.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, would both of you please speak briefly to what would you say has been the most challenging or adverse circumstance or issue that you've had to deal with, and how did you come through that? I'll just leave that open. Whoever wants to go first.
I don't mind. I'll go.
Justin, go for it.
Yeah, I'd say most recently, for the first time in my life, I experienced a form of burnout, if you want to call it that. I will say that doing reskinning our business and forming the alliance that we have, all the stress that goes with that, and then being with a pandemic thrown in on top of that. I have 3 lovely children. My wife has a startup. I've been separated from my family in the UK because Singapore's policy is very much that the borders are closed. And that kind of working from home and full-on nature of it. That is, and all my colleagues as well have felt that way. I think that's probably been one of the most challenging things I've ever had to deal with in my working life. Even though we've got through this successfully, I think that anxiety of, for me personally, because I'm still very active in recruiting, it's been, making sure I try and deliver on everything, making sure all my colleagues are motivated that they can deliver on everything, and just the fear that we might not have anything else next week, because you never know where this pandemic is going. I think getting through this period has probably been one of my most challenging periods, and I had a little insight into what working in a challenging period will be like, with having a business in Hong Kong during the riots and in Dubai during the oil price crash. But I don't think anyone really experienced a global pandemic before. So that has probably, getting through that, and I'm pleased to say that we are getting through that, and I'm certainly getting through that after a bit of a dip. That's been one of the most challenging things to deal with.
Justin, thank you so much for being open and sharing that, because I think a lot of people will be able to relate to what you just said. At what point did you sort of hit the wall and feel that level of burnout, that you hadn't really experienced previously, and how did you get through that? Yeah.
Looking back on it, I think it was just a series of small things that started to build up over time. So when this first started we're in October now. So when this first started in March, everyone thought this would be a temporary blip. So, shut down the office, everyone goes to home, and then Dan and I had these ongoing discussions about putting DMCG together. And then I think everyone, in my mind, this was a temporary blip. And as the temporary blip became ever more extended, you realize that you were now delving into the world as this is what the working life is going to be like for the foreseeable. And making sure the team were motivated, making sure our business that we've just basically we've brought 3 companies together, we've created a new business, making sure that works efficiently. Dan and I continued to hire people during this period, don't forget that. Making sure my family had the money was coming in, that my family was safe and secure and happy, dealing with homeschooling and like a gazillion Zoom calls. All of those things started to add up. And I think by September, when our business had started to really pick up from midsummer. So by September, we were back to levels that we were pre-COVID, which was great. But we were delivering it with fewer numbers because we had to let a couple of people go. And it was, I think, the anxiety and pressure, and then delivering on that. My wife and I sat in different rooms together. It all came to it all came to the forefront about a month ago, and I realized, I'd been drinking more than I should have done, that I wasn't, just all little things that add up, that I had my exercise regime slightly slipped, and I quickly got them back into play. And 2 weeks later, I felt all right, thankfully. But I did put a post out on LinkedIn about this, and it was phenomenal to see the response and how many people actually felt the same.
It's such a good Justin's made, because you talked originally about the biggest challenge. And I like you, Justin, I wouldn't have said it's actually a particular thing. It wasn't like the 2008 economy crash, or it wasn't about an individual consultant leaving or a client doing something. It's almost like death by a thousand cuts. As a business owner, there's stuff happening every day, all the time, and it can build up, I suppose. There's a responsibility that I felt in March to look after everybody. They are like a family. I didn't want to lose anybody. I wanted to make sure everyone was able to pay their bills, was able to, I wanted to shield everyone from the effects of what was really going on around them, and create a sense of safety for people, which is quite a big responsibility. I think managed to get through that. Okay. That's a challenge, I suppose, in just trying to just keeping on top of things and making sure that you've got your wits about you, and that you're playing the right cards at the right time, and you're releasing the right messages at the right time, and you're able to keep control of the situation without being too over the top about it. But in this last 6 months, 9 months has been a very challenging period for anyone in recruitment, anyone all over the world right now. I think people are, dealing with it in their own way. And Justin's been very great in actually noticing it, recognizing that, actually dealing with it, and now coming at the other side, and talking about it is admirable.
Yeah, I'd love to get a link to that post, Justin, and we can share it in the show notes. That post you got a great response to. Dan, so for you, how, what steps did you take to make sure that you were able to do what you felt responsible for doing, which was making sure that you and your family, but also the well-beings of your team members were looked after? Like, what were the specific steps around that?
Well, there's a lot of communication. I think that week I went upstate. I was just going to switch off, and the guys in New York and girls in New York, Penny and John, were saying that you've earned a bit of time to switch off. It's been so hectic. We had a lot of people from London come to the New York office throughout January and February, so they were here. There was lots of meetings. It was very full on, pretty much right up until middle of March when I was due to have that week off. So coming back from that, it was just a case of communicating. I was on the phone. I was actually walking around. I've got I live in Brooklyn. I've got like a basement I work from, and I was just pacing around on the phone. I remember looking at my phone, and I'd done 28,500 steps a day. It was about 14 miles or something. I looked at my phone. It was like that every day, and actually I was like, I'm doing a marathon every 2 days. And that was just me on the phone, walking around the apartment, talking to people. And I was going hoarse. It was just talking to everybody as often as I could, reading the room, looking at the news, but not too much looking at the news. And that's kind of how I dealt with it, really, just trying to talk to as many people as I could, and just reassuring them and letting them know what we're doing, and giving what I would say not overly regular updates, but I'd like to think enough updates so people know that we're in a safe place and here's what we're doing and here's how we're mapping it out. And obviously, that's how I handled it, but it was more like it was a thrown in the deep end situation rather than planning that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think what you're describing of you almost can't over communicate, and I think you did absolutely the right thing. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and ask about the opposite, because this business is full of highs and lows, and we've talked about some of the low points and then how to get yourself back out of the trough and advancing up the peak again. But let's talk about some of the highs and some of the real achievements you guys have had. Justin, turning to you first, I know that in spite of everything that's going on and all the turmoil and all the rebrand and everything, you've still been able to produce some seriously big numbers in terms of personal production. Would you speak a little on that? Like, how have you managed to pull that off?
Yeah, I think what I said before was just brought on to the fact, I've got a very strong work ethic. I work a lot of hours, and I've got 10 years of clients sort of history behind me in our region. And what I was as I said before, was quite surprised about was the resilience of our clients. So I think I'll personally build close to $1 million this year, which will be a great achievement to come through. And actually our numbers will not be that far from where we were on the year before. So whilst we had that blip, we've managed to quickly get things going. I think a strong new business strategy combined with the fact of extreme fortune of having clients that, particularly in the PR side, our public affairs and government affairs division have accelerated, and some really good tech and startup brands have received, should we say, support that they never knew they were going to get. This period of COVID has really injected some testosterone into their business that they didn't know was going to happen. So they've gone on big hiring drives. So that's been, through all this turmoil for our region, I guess we have actually come out of this pretty well. And I know from talking to Alan as well in Australia that, I think the government support programs have been really good for his business. I think that's really been for the SME sector. That's been fantastic, and he's it looks like, or putting Victoria State to one side, the Australian market and he's got a very strong business in Perth, has done pretty well. And let's not forget my Hong Kong business has got, although it's in Hong Kong, a big part of its revenue stream is in China, and China is set to be the only market this year to come out of ironically, given where this started, but it will come out of this in growth, and is already showing that.
Fantastic. So it sounds like a few things lining up there, which is the intersection of, a huge amount of hard work and experience on your side, combined with some good fortune of, the markets that you're operating in. The intersection of those things means you're actually having a very good year. Dan, for you, what would you say has been a highlight or like one of the things you are most proud of in your business?
I suppose it would be the development of the people we've had for many, many years. We've always had very core, strong, mission statement and values. We had that at Daniel Marks. We've got a kind of a new set of mission statement and values for DMCG Global. And I've always wanted to promote people really based on living the values. Billing is obviously extremely important, but I'd put the values above that. I want team players. I want people who are collaborative. I want people who are, like Justin said, good people. Billing needed to be there, but if people weren't living the values, they weren't going to progress. So we're quite quick to sort of, I suppose, move people along that weren't living those values, which kept a really core bunch of really good people who I'm really proud now are, who've taken an opportunity of building their own businesses with experience they've got. So having launched like maybe 25 licenses now, 25 unique businesses, I'm really proud that those people have been able to do that. But it was a journey to get to that point, to build those relationships that I've had the last dozen years with the staff that we've had and the staff that we have now. I mean, I remember we had one highlight was definitely we hit our targets. So 2 years ago we flew 25 people to Dubai for a week. People from New York, from London. We hired a boat. It was a wonderful time. It's almost like the heyday, and having a really nice time. I was very proud. I met a friend and he came with me on the boat. I felt very proud just having that group of people and everyone having a really nice time on the business. And they'd earned it. They'd really earned it. And that for me was a very proud moment. I see pictures looking through your phones. Oh yeah, I remember that. That was really good fun. I just don't see that happening right imminently with what was going on. But that for me was a very proud moment, and giving people the success and the rewards for the hard work that they've done.
Awesome. Justin.
Yeah, I just want to say something else that I really think in times of adversity, you always see good people rise to the top, and you always see, I think that has been one of the things that I've really noticed within the business is, we brought together a group of people that didn't really know each other that well from different corners of the world, and everyone's bonded fantastically well. We've got our group WhatsApps, we share content all the time. Everyone's incredibly supportive of each other and we are literally on every corner of the world, and that's been really wonderful to see. And I think personally for me, I've really seen, Adam and Pete in my team, they've become, we set up a little Three Amigos WhatsApp group when this, because we were marooned in 3 different places, and it's seeing sort of some of the way that some of the staff have really dug deep and not let something as big as a pandemic get in their way, and show that remarkable resilience and determination that you need as to be a successful recruiter, really sort of come to the forefront. But the amalgamation of the team, the collaboration, the inclusion that everyone has, and those are real values that Dan and I are very passionate about, has really sort of seemed to have stemmed through the entire business and organization. And I think actually one of the things that COVID has done is press the fast forward button a lot of things that could be, the fact that we're doing this from different corners of the world on VC, the fact that technology has become played such a pivotal role now in the recruiters or just everyday life has been really interesting to see the fast forward button pressed there. But I think the whole diversity question as well, it seems to have really sort of pressed the accelerator button on the D&I space as well. And that's been something that we've always preached and been very passionate about, and it's good to see our clients now paying so much attention to that.
It's become a real thing now that we've always been talent finders, and for several years now, we've always been talent finders of diverse talent, and that's become even more prerogative because lots of candidates are out in the market now. But our clients are coming to us for that diverse talent because they're not in their wheelhouse, and they need us to reach out to those people and represent those people and really help them find that talent. So that, again, like Justin mentions, diversity has become even more prevalent now during COVID, and that's what we've found our unique skills in sourcing, working off references, recommendations, and networking. I mean, one of our team in account handling in London I said this the other day, Nirmal, Kate and Kelly work client services in London. Between them, they've got 21 years experience recruiting client services people in London. They're meeting on average, 5 account handlers a week. We're looking at 6, 7, 8,000 account handlers they've met between them in person. So that specialism and that unique sort of experience that they have, that's worth quite a bit. And that's more than a little black book. That's developed over years and years and years of doing it and doing the job very well.
Amazing. Dan, can you guys elaborate on the diversity and inclusion piece a little bit? Because you mentioned that you're passionate about it, and it's something you've always done, and now clients are embracing it more and more. But what are the specifics around that? How have you been able to recruit, deliver diverse shortlists, and what is the actual strategy there?
It's a good question. I mean, we ran an event with the IPA in London in 2004, and it was all 100. We sponsored it. 150 business leaders from agencies and talent, and everyone split into groups. And things that were coming up were these things that are very common and spread now. I know diversity has been an issue for years and years and years, but it's only been the last, I'd say, 8 years that it's been really on everyone's tongues. And we saw that back in 2003, 2004 is why we launched the Big Bang Creative Internship Scheme with the Prince's Trust, the Planning Academy for different strategists from diverse walks of life. And for us, we've been trying to bring talent in from diverse backgrounds at the grassroots level for a number of years. And those initiatives that we run are free for our clients. But that helps. But what we can offer is finding diverse talent from people who are maybe coming different walks of life and different skill sets, come from recommendations, and they're the ones that we're able to find opportunities for. And I think we can offer, if our product is people, we can offer a product that is a product that they need, and we can find those people. That's our job.
Awesome. Justin, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's a subject I feel very passionately about, but also one I've kind of lived with for five years as well. My wife set up first of all a business specifically, like what my wife had realized when she worked at an advertising agency, and after she had our first child, was that, being a new mum, all of a sudden, if you're in the creative industry and being a new mum, there appeared to be fewer options available to you. And the fact that she needed to work flexible hours meant that she was essentially ousted out of the agency. So what she then said, she ousted herself out because she didn't like the attitude. What she then set up was a platform which I co-founded with her, which was basically a platform that enabled new mums and women to find flexible work opportunities. And from that, I've worked very closely with her, and Helen, my wife, has now gone on to develop a technology platform which specifically finds diverse talent for organizations. It is actually it's a tech sourcing platform. So that's something that we're going to be integrating into DMCG to give us sort of a point of difference. And also, I think it's just quite evident in the way when we talk to clients how they now pay more attention to wanting diverse talent. I mean, we've been, even in the Middle East and Asia, which, let's be honest, has not been sort of well known for its fast movements when it comes to, perhaps bringing in diverse talent. And now even some of our clients there are really key on bringing in female leadership or diverse leadership from different walks of life, which is, just really fantastic to see.
Awesome. I'll put a link to Helen's website in the show notes, but it's diversely.io, right?
That's right.
Speaking of, website addresses and so on, like if someone's listening to this right now thinking, this is such an inspiring story, I want to be part of this, or I want to find out, more about what these guys are doing, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, our website is simply dmcgglobal.com. So dmcgglobal.com. Myself and Justin and all of our team, on LinkedIn, we're there. I think we had a bit of a to and fro with you, actually, Mark, at the weekend. I think you put a post up on Saturday saying, "Is anyone reading this?" And Justin said, "Absolutely." And I think I was a minute behind saying, yeah, absolutely, proactively and reactively. Like for me, it's almost I've drunken the Kool-Aid. I'm on it. I don't know. I don't think I go more than 5 minutes without checking my phone on an email or. But then dealing with Sydney, for me, that's late in the evening for me, and I'm dealing with the UK. That's like 5 a.m. So yeah, I kind of have to be on it all the time. So it's almost like a trip effect for me. It's almost like a way of life.
It's it's a double-edged sword, that, because on the one hand, it's important to be available and responsive to your customers, but on the other hand, the danger is, as Justin described earlier, of burning out. And that's the problem with the phone and social media, is that you're connected all the time, so you never really leave the office. It's always kind of there. And I posted that message, "Who else is on LinkedIn?" this morning on Saturday. And that message has had 100,000 views in 72 hours. And just goes to show, and it was kind of testing, because I was like, I don't know if it's worth posting content on the weekend, but let's just see who else is out there. The response was so massive that on the one hand, I was pleased that I got so much traction. On the other hand, I was a little bit concerned because I'm thinking, I actually don't want to be on LinkedIn on the weekend. I probably should be instead being fully engaged with my kids, or, instead of checking my phone. So
Justin has the situation of having a Dubai market in the Middle East, and they start on Sunday. So
right,
unfortunately, the weekend is halved automatically.
Crazy. So where do you guys go from here? What's the vision for DMCG Global?
I think, for us, it's embedding down that we've got 10 offices. That's a lot of offices, right? And we're also doing it in the middle of a pandemic. So I think it's, we're getting there, and we're not just getting there, we're growing, and we're really pleased with the progress that's being made. We want to get more people to join. Ultimately, we're liberating people. We're giving the opportunity to work in something, recruiters the opportunity to work in something they love in all sorts of corners across the world. So we want to continue to grow that. And we want, we're naturally through our business, and the fact that we are in all these different geographical locations is that one story leads to another. So our goal is also to look at opening up new opportunities. And just this year, we had a big opportunity potentially to look at South Korea. Thailand's a really interesting market, as well as some various other places in Asia. And I know Dan's got his eye on growing all sorts of different parts of Europe and the US as well.
Dan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Germany's a big market we're looking at. The rest of mainland Europe for us, America's a big place. I'm talking to different people in different states, which is something which is a lot of growth for us. I mean, longer term, there's no reason why we couldn't go north to Toronto or south to South America. But again, we want to make sure we're looking after our own shop, our own business. We don't want to run too fast. We're just sort of steadily, organically, sustainably growing the businesses in each of the territories that we're at. And I think having our own sort of remit in territories really allows that to happen. We're always connected to the places and the people that we're working with. And for us, I think I'd like to see the businesses that have been established, that are running the licenses, just, developing it, growing it. It's tough right now. The market is really tough, in the UK and the US and Europe. I think the word that comes to mind, and my mum told me this years ago, is character building. How you get through it, how you deal with it, going through the rough times builds character, and it makes you ultimately stronger. So I'd like to, the people we have are developing it, they're doing it, it's hard work, but they're getting success. And so we'd like to retain the people that we have and give them the support that they need, but while also acquiring new licenses in the areas where there's growth and opportunity.
Awesome. Shout out to Dan's mom. Words of wisdom. That's great.
That was a brilliant quote, by the way. That's a soundbite in itself of your mum.
Awesome. Justin, were you about to say something there?
I was just going to say, I think also growing, and Dan touched on it, growing steadily. Like, big lessons I learned, and know Dan has as well, is, the early days of running a business, I got a bit hyper excited and pressed the fast forward button on hiring people. I think sustainable growth and maintaining culture is absolutely critical to business success. So whilst we are very, Dan and I love the thought, and Alan and Adam, we love the thought of growing our business, we also want to do it with people we like working with in the right way for us. Yeah.
Hear, hear. That makes total sense. Guys, I've really enjoyed this. So thank you very much for coming on the Resilient Recruiter. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Mark.
Great title you have, Resilient Recruiter. I think any recruiter right now that's still in the business is pretty resilient.
You said it. I agree. Well, listen, guys, I look forward to speaking to you both very soon, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks.